How's it going, guys? And so for today's episode of Himprovement, we have on a special guest. His name is Assaf Luxembourg. And so just to give you some background on how we know each other, about, I would say, 2 or 3 summers ago, I took a trip with the Texas A&M Corps cadets to Israel, and we got to speak to him. And I thought that the message that he delivered to us is pretty insightful, and I figured he could offer a lot of value to you guys. And so, Asaf, if you'd like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for having me. My name is Assaf Luxembourg. I am from Israel. And my scratch in life is to really promote my country. You can call that patriotism or not. A long time ago, I was young, and my dream was to be an ambassador. And I started building my career towards that. I ended up starting my own business. And today I have a business that literally deals with promoting what my country has to offer from the business point of view. I do a lot of stuff related to high tech. So when we met in Israel, the context of the meeting was around that. But I also do a lot of other things like sort of career coaching. We'll probably talk about that. I'm a marketing consultant. I work with startups and funds and companies and organizations and agencies, doing mostly storytelling, marketing, language, pitching, that sort of thing. And I am a partner in a firm called Plus 972, which is by no accident the country code for Israel. So that's pretty much it. 36 years old, born and raised here in Israel, married plus two. That's all I'm willing to reveal so far.
All right. All right. Great. And so I guess my next question would be, what would you say inspired you to get into the field that you're in now? What would you say inspired you to take the path that you've taken today?
Right. So maybe it's worth sharing with the audience. So since, taking things seriously, you sent me like a prep doc with questions, which I have here with notes. So I'm super happy to go over it. And it's actually related to the topic of, embracing and owning things seriously. So up until I would say 22 or 3, I had different passions in life. I was actually a musician. My best friends in high school were synthesizers and recording software. So I was the perfect combination of a nerd, because that's a lot of like, sound design and software and computers. On the other hand, back in those days, hip hop was not really a thing in Israel, but electronic music and EDM like took it big because we're influenced by Europe.
Hmm.
So I want to be DJs and producers or whatever you call that, who wanted to also do their own music, came to me, the nerd kid. So this was my life. But there was a moment in time after my army service in Israel, back when I was 22, 23, where I literally fell in love with what I consider is my career path, which is what I said in the beginning. That's how it started. Everything else is just tumbling down the rabbit hole. It was a moment in time where I fell in love with an idea of what I want to do in my life. I had zero idea how I'm going to do it, but I knew what I want to do and why.
That's great that you were able to find that, after taking some time to do your own thing at first with music. And so, one question I have to follow up on that was, what was the process like for you when you were discovering your life purpose? What was the catalyst, or what different events, if you're comfortable, transpired that led to you eventually figuring out what you wanted to dedicate your life to?
Right. So again, I'm going to try to like internationalize the story, but super fine to go into the details for the context. So there's a program related to Israel called Birthright Israel, or Taglit, which basically brings Jews from all over the world to see Israel for the first time. And they up until COVID at least, they used to also bring Israelis to join the bus. So there would be like an actual meeting between people from different places. Because the best way to get to know a place is to get to know locals. So I was one of those Israelis. I was a soldier in the army towards the end of my service. And I was sent literally as some sort of, instead of a vacation, as a bonus, if you want, for 5 days to join a bus and meet people from all over the world and tour Israel with them. And just to tell them how it is being here. And it was in that, it was in those 5 days where, my jaw fell down, because I realized that, devoting my life to something of higher value, which is, showing the truth about the place which I'm from and showing the potential values it could bring, and to get people to know it better, not necessarily to persuade them of anything, but just to get to know the truth. I fell in love with that. So in the beginning, I wanted to be the tour guide. Very early on, I disqualified the option of becoming a tour guide.
Right.
And then, never mind the details, but I fell in love with the idea of becoming an ambassador. Because a diplomat, by definition, their job is to promote their countries in an official way, still. And not only that, one of the officials in that organization that took part of those programs, he was an ex-ambassador. So I said, Assaf, that's it. You need to become a diplomat, have like a mini career until you're 40 something, then quit, and then go do other things that relate to the same, passion and mission, just like that guy does. And it was clear to me that I'm going to be an ambassador. So I started deriving backwards. Okay, what do I need to study in order to become an ambassador? Mind you, a 23-year-old in Israel just finished his army service, kind of an equivalent to an American or North American 18-year-old, meaning you have to go to university or college. So you do it at a later age. So what should I study in order to become an ambassador? Okay, obviously, like political science, let's mix it with economics. And let's take jobs, like, studential jobs in the Israeli government that will help you, get on that path. And I played chess throughout my 20s, moved all the pieces to the right location so that by the time I'm 30, I applied the cadet course and I become an ambassador. And obviously that did not happen. That was the big break for me. I had a huge meltdown. I had a sort of a career crisis when I was 30 years old. Never mind the details, but eventually I understood I'm not going to be an ambassador. And the big eureka was that I understood that being an ambassador was not the goal. It's a mean to an end. It's a way to reach the goal. If the goal was to do the things I want to do, there could be other ways of doing them. And that's how I started my business. My business was born out of a great misery and a sense of failure that I didn't get in the cadets course in the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's a little bit about the process of how it went. I didn't become a freelancer and like a business owner all at once. It took a few years. I had a day job and I was doing like a side hustle. But that's how I got to the moment where today, it's just doing me.
Okay. And you touched on something that was pretty interesting, actually. And this is something I've seen in some of your other content where you talked about not necessarily committing to, I would say, to make an analogy, not committing to the vehicle, meaning like the way to get to the end goal, but just committing to the goal. So that way, if the process you have to take ends up changing, it's not the end of the world. You can find other means to be able to get to that end goal. Could you elaborate on that a little bit and talk about why that's important?
Yeah, sure. So the way I experienced it, I love analogies. So the way I experienced it, there was a mountain that I wanted to climb. And, there was a path, with stairs, the whole thing, and a road up the mountain. And someone literally like blocked the road and, suddenly there's like a canyon and like the road is blocked. You can't go through the road. But the road is not important. Getting to the top of the mountain is important. So, what do you have to do? You have to take a machete and start going through the bush, right? Like carve your way, up the mountain. That's how I felt with at least the early years of my independence journey. I did not know Simon Sinek at the time, although he was already famous. It was later on that I discovered his Start With Why book and talk and everything. And in a way I think it relates to the journey that I'm in a way still going through. And the big takeaway for me was disconnect the why from the what and the how. So for those of you in the audience that may know Simon Sinek, that's great. For those of you who don't, go check it out. But basically, if he talks about focusing on your why, for me, it really was, a disconnect disconnect the why from the what and the how. I talk a lot. I used to talk a lot about innovation, especially in the times when we met in Israel. I still do. In a way, I believe this is where true innovation comes from. If you focus on your why, you know why you want to do what you do and who do you want to do it for, let the market tell you the what and the how. Let them go. They are not the thing that defines you. And then you're able to adapt to changes and innovate and reinvent yourself. I felt like a complete loser when I went to sign up at the tax authority to become a freelancer. I really did. Today, it's like, the new superstar or cowboy. Everybody wants to be like successful freelancers in a way and own their own business. It wasn't like that for me. I didn't want this what and how, but it was about the why and who.
Okay, and I appreciate you sharing that. And I guess to show that my situation somewhat relates, I kind of had a similar situation when it came to starting the podcast. And so I knew what my goal was, I knew what I had an interest in, but I didn't necessarily know how to do it. And so it kind of got to a point to where I knew I wanted to offer value to other guys and help guys to be able to move through difficult situations I faced in life and may not have had help to deal with. And then I started to think, well, how am I getting the help? I'm listening to podcasts, I'm looking at YouTube videos, different content like that. Why not start there? And so I can definitely relate to what you're saying about maybe not necessarily dedicating yourself to the means to do it, but the path. The goal. Dedicating yourself to the goal, not the path, because I'm still fairly new to this, and so far it's working out well. But you never know. Tomorrow something could change, to where I might not be able to do podcasting anymore. But knowing what my end goal is, knowing what my mission or my purpose is, it makes it to where I can find other paths to get to that destination instead of, my whole world
Absolutely.
coming to an end by, not being able to do podcasting if that happened.
Absolutely. And just to, just complete this topic, because you asked about, sharing with your audience. So there's a known Israeli entrepreneur by the name of Uri Levin. And he was one of the founders of Waze. Many of you out there probably know Waze, which was bought by Google and a big success story. And there's a saying that really, I don't know if he invented it, but it's related to him in many places. He's known for saying, fall in love with the problem. Fall in love with the problem, not your solution. Your idea for the startup may suck. What you want to develop and sell in your e-com business may not work. The kind of jobs that you want to do because you think you could be good at it, you may not be good at it, or you are, but the market doesn't need it right now. So don't fall in love with the solution, fall in love with the problem. If you fall in love with the problem, you can let the solution be a variable. The market will help guide you to the solution. And I think for many young professionals nowadays, this is a really important topic. So I guess we'll talk about it a little bit later on. A lot of the work that I do today is related to develop an entrepreneurial mindset, not necessarily an entrepreneurial career as a profession. And I think it's super important for employees, entrepreneurs, freelancers, you name it, especially in today's world. So fall in love with the problem. I'm in love with the problem. For me, it's still a problem. I'm far from solving it. But it's what I want to say that I did in my life, dealing with this problem.
Building that legacy, right?
It's not just the legacy is like a derived outcome. What I want people to say about me and how I helped fight the problem. The problem for me is that a lot of people have misconceptions around my country because of media bias, lies, a lot of things. And, whether they disagree or agree with me or they like me or don't like me or us, in Israel, it doesn't matter. But for me, the mission is to get them to know the truth and then they can decide. For me, this is like the burning, the ever-burning bush, if you want. That's what guides me. I can't see myself doing anything else that has no, at least derived relationship to this problem. Otherwise, I'm not the right man for the job, in a way. I need that connection. It doesn't have to be direct, but I need it somewhere to explain to myself why I'm giving blood, sweat, and tears for a certain thing.
I respect that, having that conviction towards your cause. And I feel like there are also some other benefits that come with that. And to harp off of that, I'll ask, did having a strong purpose have an effect on your ability to be able to create solutions? Did it make you more dedicated and creative whenever you had something that you could strongly tie yourself into?
Look, it's a good question because in a ways it did, because the way I see it, me serving my clients is what matters, not me selling what I have on the shelf right now. And if my clients' needs change, I'm the first one to throw away everything I have on the shelf and go develop what they need. So in the one hand, yes. So it's what I said before, if you know your why and you focus on your why and who do you want to serve and why, let the what and the how go. On the other hand, I can share with you that I'm also struggling with the other side of it. Maybe I'm too locked in. Maybe I'm too zeroed in on a few things and I'm not being able to see, sideways and expand to more things. I have that tension all the time, but I think it's in a way a somewhat healthy entrepreneurial tension to have. Every business owner thinks, maybe I'm missing out. Maybe we should do more things, but maybe it's not who we are. So even if we succeed at it, it's not what we want to build with this company. So, these thoughts are always there.
All right, great. And so I guess to touch on one of the other things you talk about in your content, I guess is pretty related to this, what we're talking about now, is how to be the CEO of you. And so could you give the audience a quick summary of what that means to you?
Yeah, sure. The quick context is that now that I explained my why and my greater goal, a few years ago, well, let's put it this way. In 2007, end of 2007, a book came out called Startup Nation, which made huge headways, huge, waves around the world. It really, nailed Israel's brand as a place of startups and innovation and technology and entrepreneurship. Not that Israel wasn't that before, but the book brought that story to everyone. It was a huge thing. And from 2008, for something like 10 years, everybody came here to try and look for the next ways, to try and see what is it in the Israeli mindset, what can we take from this story? Politicians, policymakers, entrepreneurs, investors, business people, MBA students, everybody came here. And a few years ago, in 2008, more or less, a little bit before, I started seeing that for a lot of people, they don't necessarily aspire to be startup entrepreneurs. But a lot of people are struggling with an entrepreneurial mindset in what is a very changing and dynamic world of work. So I used to meet a lot of young professionals, 20-year-old something, individuals, talents from all over the world. And for a long time, my generation, all people wanted to do is, think about the next big idea for the next app, go fundraise from, an angel or two, take an office of WeWork, print a t-shirt with your logo on it, and start working on your tech startup. And I started seeing that fade away, and a lot of people look for an entrepreneurial career path, not necessarily be an entrepreneur as a profession. And I said, if that's what people struggle with, and I'm a service-minded individual, I want to help people, and by that connect them to Israel, I need to maybe bring some value to that. So what I did was start taking business lessons from the world of innovation, entrepreneurship, business, and so on, into the world of career building and personal and professional development. That's the context. So I did it not because I wanted to be a coach or anything like that. I don't consider myself a coach. I did it because I saw it's a way to connect people with Israel. So what I did is use stories of people companies, case studies, our history, modern history, biblical analogies, everything that I could use for my bag of culture, um, to add value for a more healthy entrepreneurial thinking. And just to wrap it up, over a period of something like 2 years, I started packaging a lot of things into like some sort of I don't want to say it like a methodology or anything like that. It's not my um, methodology, but a certain perspective. And that's the business unit perspective that I mainly communicate today, which is all about the idea that individuals need to see themselves as if they are the CEO of them they incorporated. So whoever's listening right now, you could be working for the bank your entire life, and that's fine. You don't need to be an entrepreneur. But in order to survive and thrive in today's world of work, I believe each and every one of you should think as if you are the CEO of you Incorporated or you Ltd or you LLC, whether you have a company or of your own or don't. And then that mindset changes a lot of practical things in the workspace.
I like how you found a way to tie that into, I guess, the mindset of people who aren't necessarily entrepreneurial focused, but how even though someone could be, a corporate finance person or a nurse or any other type of profession, it's not a business owner type profession, they can still think of their life like a business, thinking like how they're building their own brand and how they need to make sure they live a life that's conducive to that. And so to go into the next question, I would ask, what are some practical tips that you would give to the listeners to help them become the CEOs of their life, if you could give a few?
Right. So for those who are interested, in order not to take too much time from this interview, a lot of it is online. I publish a lot of things for free. Many of them are also recurring. So it's the same idea from different angles. So you could find the one that fits better for you, for each and every one of you. But here are a few. If you are the CEO of you, then your boss is not your army commander that gives you instructions which you need to comply. If you are the CEO of you, by definition, your boss is your customer. Now, if your boss is your customer, the customer is not always right. The customer always has to be served. Service is an important thing. So what that brings about, instead of coming to work and doing what you're asked to do and do it faster, maybe even better, and then ask for a promotion, over time, I think that will not work. Thinking like a business unit, you need to think about sales. So it's not about doing what I do better and then ask for more money. What I think a healthy perspective could be, what other needs do my clients have which I could answer for? And then go and try to create solutions for that. And if you increase the value that we bring to your customer, you can ask for more returns. If you bring the same value in less time, not necessarily you're going to get more returns. So very basic business understanding, just to bring it into the individual mindset. Like here's an example. Let's say you need to hire a lawyer to write a contract for you. And the price of the contract is X. If the lawyer does it in less time, good for the lawyer. Not necessarily you're willing to pay more for that. But if the lawyer is able to help you with more things, maybe that's worth for you to pay more for the lawyer for that. So a lot of people, they get better at their job and they're frustrated by not being promoted. It's because you need to add more new value. You need to sell to your client and serve your client. So that's one idea. Another idea is for how people look for jobs. So a lot of people look for jobs. They go into the job market and they see who's available right now that wants someone like them. And then they go and they try to maximize from what's there right now. But this is a very limited mindset. Better mindset could be trying to actually identify your golden prospects. If you're the CEO of you, think, which clients do you want to have? Who do you really want to work for? If everyone's paying the same, who do you want to work for? What do you want to do with them? Why? If you go and communicate that to them, you're able to really stand out from the others because they're looking for people who align with their mission, not just who's available right now. So, there are ways to do it better if you're thinking like a business for yourself. And again, the practice and how to do it, and it's all online. So these
Right.
are like two examples if you want.
Okay. And one thing that I really like about this ideology that you came up with is that it forces people to, one, take accountability, I guess you could say. It's not to where they're just kind of a victim, just riding the wave, going with the motions and everything with their boss or with their job, but they're being intentional about their life. They're being calculated about how they want to move about their career and other aspects of their life, almost as if they're a business.
Look, one of the things that I try to communicate outside to as many people as possible, like the responsibility has shifted in a way in the new world of work. You can say it's because of the internet, you can say it's because of culture, you can say it's because of technology, you can say it's because of a lot of things. But it used to be that, whose responsibility is it to make sure that you produce more than you cost? In the old world of
Yeah.
work, it would have been your boss, right?
Right.
Manager. Their job is to make sure that if you cost the company 80, you produce 100. Today, in a way, it's not their job anymore. It's your job as the employee. Speaking specifically about employees, you need to make sure you produce more than what you cost. Because if it's the other way around, you're not going to stay for long. Now, true, it used to be your boss's job to coach you, to mentor you if they were a good manager, leader, and make sure that gap is healthy. But in today's world where people switch jobs every 2 years, where employers change their needs every 2 years, so they hire different people every 2 years, it's just because, the pace is so high, it can't be on the boss's responsibility anymore. So it falls down on the employee. So there's a lot of research today, actually, that backs this up and said, personal development became the employee's perspective. Companies should empower their employees to develop themselves, not develop them. So instead of feeding, you need to teach them how to fish. But from the employee perspective, you also need to embrace that. I believe this is also where the biggest opportunity is, because if you do it earlier than others and you're able to overwhelm and over deliver to your boss and show that you can do more things, you create your own promotion. So it's not about which promotions are available next year. You're not shopping for a promotion. Create the promotion you want. So it's just to look at things from a different angle.
Okay. And to touch on that, it almost sounds like something else I heard you mention in your content about not being a customer in your own life. And so that's essentially what it's promoting, right?
Yeah, so this is a more direct way of saying it, maybe a more aggressive way to communicate it. I'm trying to be delicate here, but the more Israeli way of saying it would be something like, look, you're not the customer in your life, you're the owner. Like a lot of people go to college, they try to shop for a career path. College not going to, the university's job is not to supply you a career path. The university's job is to give you skills, mindset, learn how to research, learn how to write papers. They teach you how to fight, like, a gladiator's school, but they will not tell you who to fight and where and for which general. That's for you to decide. So people expect university to do that. The career center is supposed to help me find a job where I'll feel meaningful and, I'll do meaningful things and I'll be part of a good team. And I just want to have, good people. And I don't want too much to earn. I just want a decent, honest salary. And I also want a good boss as a leader and me, and what I want. You're not in the center here. Which companies do you want to serve? Which companies do you want to be a part of? Why? If you're willing to go and earn less just in order to be part of what those companies are doing, if you communicate that to them and you show that you can bring unique value to them, not just because of your commitment, but also because your unique value proposition, just like any good business leader would do to promote sales, not only you'll not make less, but they're looking for people like you. So don't take life as a customer. You don't like the wife or husband, you switch. You don't like your job, switch. I don't like the whatever, switch. Career is not a consumption good.
I like that. Career is not a consumption good. I've never heard that one before. I'll have to write that one down.
Yeah, I don't remember where, not mine. I don't remember where I heard it, but it's not a consumption product or not a consumption good. It's an investment vehicle. Meaning, I mean, think about it. The word business, literally the word business. I'm willing to bet that for 99.999% of whoever is listening, which is probably, one or two people, I'm kidding, probably 3 million people, the 3 million of you out there. What is the word business? What's the word business? What does it stand for? For the 99.999%, probably emotionally, before they have to think about it, they will default to business equals how to make money. What's business? Making money. Companies, they do business, they make money. And I'm like, if you really think about it, the word business comes from the word busy. What do you choose to be busy with? It has to do with that. If there's no commitment and intention, if it's not important for you, if it's just about the money, the first moment it'll become difficult, you'll think about alternatives. Not only that, someone who has less skills, who's less capable, but more committed, will be more diligent and over time will take over, like steal your meal. And the truth is, these things are hard. I mean, it's a marathon. And it's not easy. So you rather do it in places that you really care about. That's what I'm pushing for. It's not easy to find that place. But I also don't think that everyone should have the same path and kind of journey that I'm going through. I really fell in love with a certain mission. But I know that not everybody has something that they'll just fall in love with and will be like dogmatic and committed. I understand that.
It's definitely understandable.
Yeah. So, here's something, for 3 years since in between when I started acting as a freelancer and until I became like full-time, doing my own thing, for 3 years, I had a day job and I was doing my thing on the side. I didn't know if it's going to grow. I didn't say, oh, I'm going to build it over 3 years. I have a business plan because then, I'll be able to turn it over. I knew that if I'm going to do what I want full time back when I started, I'm not going to make enough. On the other hand, if I go and take a full-time day job and I'm going to do nothing that relates to my core passion, I'm going to fade. I'm going to fade over time. I'm going to decay. So I ended up having like a healthy mix. I went to an employer that from the get-go, I communicated to that employer what it's important for me. And, we had an understanding from the beginning. So instead of, a lot of people play poker, at work, they're looking for a job behind the scenes and, the boss is looking for another employee and there's no trust. Everybody's playing poker. So people feel lonely and they're, insecure. And my takeaway from that, I didn't plan it, but I said, you know what, maybe it's good to, for a lot of people, they have what they really love doing and it fills in 30% of their time. And for the other 60%, the other 70%, they have a day job. And it's because of that disconnect, they are able to give 100% of work because they know there's something else that fulfills them. And when they give 100% for this thing that fulfills them on the side, they don't expect that to replace what they do at work. And it's a very healthy mix.
And I appreciate you sharing that. And something I think is also important that can tie into this is also having a growth mindset whenever you decide to take that path, like what you've taken to dedicate yourself to your mission. One thing I'd say is that it has a direct correlation to the level of success that you can have whenever you start to work towards something on your own, especially something that you're passionate with. So what would you say is the importance of a growth mindset, and how would you, what tips would you give for the listeners to be able to develop that as they move through life?
Okay, so two things here. Before that, just for the previous point, if those of you are looking for what I just blurred about, so I wrote about it in the context of, believe it or not, Superman and Clark Kent. So there's a post out there that I wrote called "In Defense of Clark Kent," because Superman was not Superman all day long. He had a day job, but he had a healthy mix. Superman had to make a living out of, helping the fire forces and the police. He would not make enough money. He needed that, mix. So that's for the Superman and Clark Kent analogy for having a side hustle, basically. As for what you asked about growth mindset, I will say the following. So something that I think about a lot lately is, when you're too locked in on something. A very wise lady told me a few years ago that the North Star is really important, but the North Star itself is irrelevant. It's like the purpose is to direct to the North direction. So a lot of people are locked on a specific thing, like the North Star. And if they don't get it, they think they lost. But the North Star is irrelevant. The North direction is relevant. So in terms of growth mindset, knowing to differentiate between the North Star and the North direction. We need stars. We need the North Star, this specific point, this specific, job title, that specific dream, that specific client or project or, creation that you want to make. It's important. But also knowing that the reason you want that thing is bigger. And that bigger reason, that why, is the North direction. The North Star is just a way to envision and materialize the North direction in a specific way so we could envision it. So that's one thing, growth mindset. No to not being locked into the North Star. Aim for it, but knowing that it's just a way to focus on the North direction. Look, anyone who has experienced freelancing or being an entrepreneur, or even being a manager in a corporation, may relate to the idea that the three most important or difficult things that I think people struggle with, including me, are loneliness, uncertainty, and patience. So whether you're starting your own business or, you're working on a startup or you're carving your path, in the organization for your career goals, a lot of people at the end of the day, they feel uncertainty because most of the things are not in our control. And you need a lot of patience. Nothing's going to happen overnight. A lot of people talk about patience online around that topic. And loneliness. Loneliness is something that for many years was, correlated with entrepreneurship. The entrepreneurial journey is lonely. Those entrepreneurs, that it's a lonely journey. I think it's true for any leadership journey, whether that's thought leadership, community leadership, managerial leadership inside the organization, or entrepreneurial, freelancing. It's a very lonely journey. And coping with those things and understanding that you're not solving them, you're not overcoming them. You fight them all the time and you become, they grow you, these struggles. That's a growth mindset.
Right. And to harp on what you said about the loneliness portion of it, I can definitely relate to that when it comes to living a lifestyle that's different than the norm. And especially whenever you're doing the work that you do, it's not going to be common that you come across people that prioritize the same things that you do. And so what are some tips that you would give to people that are in a similar situation when it comes to finding like-minded people or working with the fact that for the most part, you're going to have to do a lot of this stuff alone if you want to work towards that better life?
So, different people have different ways of doing things. So there's no one size fits all. I can share that for me, there are many periods where I think it's healthy to get mad, especially if the alternative is getting sad. So when shit hits the fan, if you get sad, that ends up with Ben and Jerry's in front of the TV or Netflix or whatever, which leads to, it's okay to be sad, but not always it leads to action. When you get mad when things don't work, you want to do something. Like, let's try to make it work, or let's try to, the hell with this, let's try to do something else. But you're looking for a way forward. I think it relates to like a growth mindset or taking ownership, which is what I think it's all about. When you take life as a customer, if you got fired or something didn't work out, you feel like it was done to you. So you're the victim. The client, dragged us around, and in the end, we were hanged in the air and, nothing happened. Oh, they did it to us. And owner mindset would say, if these clients, if those people are people I want to serve, I need to understand what is not working right in the way I serve them. They are in the center, not me. So for me, getting mad, especially if the alternative is getting sad, I prefer getting mad in some situations.
And I would say that's a good thing because from what I've noticed, even in my few years of life experience, only living for 23 years, I understand that it's good sometimes to have negative motivators along with the positive motivators. I'll say some of the times when I've gotten mad, it definitely pushed me to get up out of bed or stop wasting time or whatever else I was doing and really dig deep and push into whatever it was that I was working on. And that's when I got some of the best results in my life. And so I can definitely see value in that, and I can relate. And I would agree that, it's okay to be sad, but at the same time, you can't let that be the end. There has to be some sort of
action. Because when
action.
you think like a business unit, if you're sad and really there was, an injustice which was done to you, maybe you're right, but the market doesn't care. So, it's okay to vent things and take the time to, to ponder and reflect. We're human beings. But if our career is the real business we run, if eventually, even if you work for Google or whatever, you're still the CEO of Kamani Incorporated, you're running this show by yourself. Even entrepreneurs, who are founders of companies, they're still running their career path. So I think today, culture and technology in the modern world brings those business, I would say, tenant truths to the individual level. Like, I would argue that maybe our fathers could have met like in 1980 something in the Chamber of Commerce or whatever, and they would, like, when they open up and talk, like, like the real honest talks, like, some of them may have had, they would say, at the end of the day, it's hard, and the market, and the clients, and how to find your path, and to get the mission of the business and your positioning, and they would talk like that with regards to the businesses they were leading or managing or working for. Today, we do it on our own career paths, especially when people change jobs every 2 years, and the employers, they change team members every 2 years, not because anyone did anything wrong. It's just the modern rules of the market. These are the new rules of the game.
Right, and that's understandable. And so, to backtrack a little bit on one other thing that you mentioned, you talked about the difference between getting mad and sad, but one of the things that you also touched on was being self-reflective. So instead of always being the victim or saying, look at what they did to me, asking yourself, in what way did I not provide what that customer is looking for? And I think that that's a good mindset for a lot of young men to adapt. And I think that that could definitely lead to long-term success, to be able to get into that frame instead of the victim mindset, I guess you can say. And so would you say that that's been one of the things that was one of the biggest factors in your success today?
Look, it's funny you say your success, because I don't see I'm not like a 60-year-old expert sharing life with the young folks. I'm just another Bedouin in the desert who's wandering in the same desert. I'm not a desert expert. I didn't study the physics and the chemistry of the sand. maybe I learned a thing or two about navigating in the desert, and I'm sharing tips with others. It's literally the way I see it. But I would say this. I will say that in terms of things that help, so knowing to define your core community, that's how I call it. You know, people who have a like-minded vision, or you have something similar with, they may climb a different mountain than yours, but you're climbing, for the same reasons. People who are there with you, they could be like from the competition even, but, or like from the other department, which we hate in our department. It doesn't matter, but since we have the higher purpose is like the issue here, because we all choose to be busy with it if we're here for the right reasons, and building good relationships with them. Think of any cowboy in an imaginary cowboy town 300 years ago. Like, if you want to get the gold and you think it's all a competition, and like Simon Sinek says, it's a finite game, and you'll end up in the cowboy town playing poker, and you'll be the person nobody likes to talk to. But if you go into the saloon and you actually befriend a lot of the other people in town who compete with you on finding the gold, but that's how you really build your reputation and show who you are. And that's my way of, at least in my industry. I know it's not the right formula for everyone. I'm all about serving specific organizations, specific people, or delivering specific services for others, because the common denominator for me is that I find a way to show what the place I come from, culturally, people who the country is all about. I'm an ambassador of my people. That's how I see it. So I need that common, denominator. For other people, it could be different things. It could be about the people who work here in the company. Never mind what we do, but we're like a good team, we're a tribe. For others, it could be about the product or the art or the kind of clients we serve. Like people would work in things that relate to special service. So it's about, helping others. Today, I'm helping them working for this nonprofit. Tomorrow, I'll help them by starting my own business as a consultant. Then I go back and I work with the government, so I help them from here, but it's about them. So it always, to me, it comes back to, the reason you're doing what you're doing.
And so to tie into that, what advice would you give to directionless young men that don't truly know themselves or what they want out of life, or that purpose that they need to pursue, like what you were just talking about?
So first of all, like the almighty Gary Vee says, separating the sprint from the marathon. You're not supposed to figure it out next year because you're not the client. And you're not doing it in order to feel good that you solved the career challenge, because you're not the client. It's not about you feeling good. One of the things that I used to do, I still do, like I would literally envision myself at the age of 70 or 80 or 90 or 150. I don't know how old we'll get by the time we get there. But like when me and other people will sit down, as we do here in Israel, like taking a pita, wiping hummus, Friday morning, a group of friends, just talk about life. We're all retired. At the end of the day, we're left with the things we did. Not how much we made, which is important, but it's the stories of what we did in our life. Like, Grandpa, what did you do in your, like, tell me, so how was it like back then? What did you do when the world was X, Y, and Z? Now, some people may say, oh, I need to think about, big things to solve, climate or, world peace. It doesn't have to be. It could be about sports. It could be about arts, whatever is important for you. What do you want to talk about with your grandkids and your other retired friends when you'll be 80 something, just meeting a group of friends for beer? To me, that's like a super important thing. Yeah, so that's something that helped me. It helps clear a lot of thoughts, like what's really important for me. And it's super okay to say, I'm doing this for 3 years and I'm going to do something completely else. Or, I'm going to work in something I don't want for 30 years, but I'm going to have something from the side. So my big dream is in 20 years, I leave this, I take the skills, but then I go do this thing that I did on the side for 20 years. This is the how. The how doesn't matter. What's important is the why and the who. This for me.
All right. And that I definitely can understand what you're saying. And to add to that, one thing that I would say that, at least in my experience and people that I come across, leads to a lot of guys not doing that, not being conscious of what you're just talking about, pursuing those things that we want to pursue, is really a fear of failure, I would say. That seems to be one of the main things that leads to a lot of guys not pursuing those things outside of what they do now, because they might know that they like sports and want to do something in sports, or they might like, uh, creating content or something else like that. But it's that fear of failure that makes them not pursue it.
Thank you for bringing this up. So here's another thing that comes from the world of entrepreneurship, and today is like relevant to each and every one of us. Because, embrace failure as a way to success is a known shtick from the world of entrepreneurship and startups and innovation and all that. So I think it's super important. And again, if we are all the owners of our own business as career path, we have to fail along the way. What would make our failures less hurting, I would say, so that we will be less afraid of them, is the idea that, there's something bigger that we are a part of. I do think it relates to the experience of living in a place like Israel, but it's not about Israel. Other places have that too. When you are a part of something that is bigger than yourself, it could be serving your country, it could be your industry, it could be, the frontier of the technology that you're trying to bring to the market. It could be, certain areas of life, whatever it is for you, arts, you'll find other people there. These are the people of your core community. You have to build relationships with them. They will help you see that destiny that is out there looking for you. So, for people that are lost, just reach out to people who work for industries you're interested about. Ask them how it is to work there. Bring value. So tell them, listen, I have an idea for your next campaign. Give it to them for free. Then ask a question. How is it to be in that industry? How can you learn if it's for you? And communicate that the reason you're interested is because you believe this is something you really want to be a part of for your life. I think it's a better way of creating job opportunities than just see who's out there looking to hire what and where can I fit in randomly right now. Yeah.
Hey, that pretty much sums it up. Well, I guess now that we're kind of coming to a close with the interview, to wrap it up, are there any last pieces of advice that you like to give, or is there anything that you like for the listeners to know? Any information about your business? Anything you like to share to close it out?
If someone wants to look me up, see what I do, or get more of what we spoke about, feel free to browse me online. If someone wants the best creative agency in the world, feel free to talk to me about Plus 972, of course. But first of all, I think we did a pretty good job going over most of the points here. So, good job moderating it.
Yeah, I think we hit all of them. Yeah.
I tried for myself to end with two things, but I think I'm going to not do them and maybe share something else.
Okay.
For the last 2 minutes. There's a piece of there's like an idea from like Jewish heritage that I really like. I'll just name the reference so people will know where to find it. Maimonides wrote about it, about like 3 kinds of friends in life. And it's something that every now and then I like remind myself, and I think it's really important. Also is like a compass, to find the right people, the right places, the right industries, the right career path. So Maimonides, he wrote an interpretation about something that happened in the Jewish Gemara. Never mind the context, but the punchline of what he wrote was this: there are 3 friends in life. The first kind is friends of utility, I would call it. These would be your neighbors or for those who have kids, like the parents of the other children, colleagues at work, or friends while you're in high school. You're friends now because it serves some sort of a utility for all of you. But if you take that common denominator away, you'll not really stay friends. That's okay, because you're not really, life friends. You're friends from now, and these would be the people you hang with the most, probably. And that's fine. So these would be friends of, friends of utility, I would say. The other kinds are friends of, no, these are friends of benefit. That's how we call it. The higher level are friends of comfort. These are people who love you. They care for you. They want you to be happy. But there's a trick. In order for you to be happy, they'll tell you, oh no, poor thing, what they did to you. Oh, it's so bad how they fired. Oh, it's so unfair why you got that grade. Whatever it is, right? They'll put you like not in a victim place, but they really want you to, to feel good. They'll always be there for you. Your mom, your wife, your husband, these people. But they will not always tell you the truth in your face. They will not make you be happy. So there's a trick. And Maimonides says, Rambam, as we call it here, he said the highest kind is friend of higher purpose. It could be your biggest enemy. It could be, the person who does what you do in the competitor, right? These would be people who climb your mountain or different mountains, but they'll tell you the truth in your face because you're both part of something bigger. These are people you want to hold on to. You may see them the least. You may speak with them once every 2 years, but they'll be there when you'll be 80 years old because you fought the same fight, maybe back to back, but the same fight. So think which people would be that kind of friend to you. What are they doing? Why am I attracted to these things? These are questions that can help guide you, maybe to the destiny that is out there and looking for you. 3 kinds of friends.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And I feel like if a lot of guys started thinking that consciously of the relationships that they make, it leads to us getting a lot better results in whatever we put our minds to. And I know I definitely need some more of that last group of friends that you're talking about. Just with the few so far, I do appreciate the fact that they're willing to shoot it straight and tell me like it is and let me know what I might be missing, or if I'm biased on something, tell me to eventually be a better man and not have the same faults anymore.
They are rare. By the way, speaking of, I'm not an expert on gender or whatever, but I think for men specifically, it's really important. At least in my experience, women are better in sharing when it comes to these things. And we need to find those, maybe it's a militaristic example, but, we need to find those buddies, who are like, friends for life and will tell us the truth in our face. And they are rare. We'll get 1, 2, maybe 3 if you're lucky in your life, but you need to hold on to them and serve them. Be that friend to them.
And I can definitely see how being in the military probably led to you seeing the importance of that, because even though I didn't have actual military experience, just going through trials and tribulations, and challenges with being in the Corps Cadets and military program, I can see the importance of that. And definitely in this stage of my life, as I'm, moving on a different path, and there have been times where I've struggled with things, and it was definitely something that I valued a lot, to have those guys that I could talk to and get that value from and reciprocate whenever they needed it too. And I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. I appreciate you interviewing me. It's a good way to end, no?
Yeah, pretty good way to end. Yeah, it really ties into the mission of the whole thing. And so thanks for coming on to the show. Thank you for offering so much value to the listeners today. And I'll go ahead and cut it off now. Thanks again.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for whoever's listening. Feel free to reach out to me. I literally live on LinkedIn, and if you reach out, I will reply. So do not hesitate.
All right. And I'll make sure to put the links to your website, on your YouTube channel, and your LinkedIn account in the description when I post the video and everything. Okay.
just sharing lessons with the other Bedouins. It's really what it's all about.
All right. Well, thanks again. Take care, Asaf.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.